What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, Vince Moiso here from the CEO Podcast. I'm here as always with Scott DeLong.
Hey everybody.
And we have a special guest today, Jeff Chu, who's in from Spain.
That's right.
All the way, and appreciate you having here. And Jeff and I have been friends for a number of years, so I'm excited to have you on the podcast as a guest. Before we get started, always just want to mention that if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you're on YouTube, Amazon, whatever that is, please give us a review. We would love to hear from you. You can also reach out to us at scottandvince@gmail.com. We love to get feedback, and we really like to get any topics or anything that's super hot.
So the positive reviews go on Apple and Spotify. The negative reviews are the emails, is what you're asking, right?
Yeah. So we'd love to get feedback from you guys. We'd love to get reviews. So please give us those very positive reviews. Right. Thank you very much.
And listen, the negative reviews are okay, but just send those in an email. We want to hear if we can do better. No question about that. But
Email. Yeah. I'm in agreement.
Okay.
All right. Well, for the topic today, you've heard, if you've been listening to us, and you've heard us talk about that leap of leaving leadership within a company or an industry or anything like that, and making that jump to become an entrepreneur. We have a couple episodes that are dedicated specifically to talking about startup and what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
It's not for the faint of heart.
And it really isn't. And so Jeff's in that mode, right? And so I thought, it'd be perfect to just get some experience share from somebody who's in the middle of it. And Jeff,
more than that mode though, right? Moving from one continent to another and doing a startup.
Yeah.
That's a couple different modes right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Got to give you some credit for that.
Well, Jeff, you can tell us a little bit about, let's give the audience a little bit of a starting point. Okay. So, talk about, you've had a very long international career in the tech industry. And so talk about a little bit what you've done and the companies that you've been with, so people get an idea of that runway and that journey. And then, kind of the dream of what you've been telling me for the last decade of starting up this business in Spain. So I'll let you, in your own words, kind of give that background.
Thank you, Vince. Well, look, from an entrepreneur standpoint, I think my journey started all the way back when I was in middle school selling candy and later into working down in the harbor doing boat inspections and having a business. And I always thought of myself as being a business owner. That was the thing that I always expected my life to end up doing. In the meanwhile, as life happens, I ended up getting into the tech sector in the late 90s and startups up in LA, and ended up working in data centers and all kinds of different parts of the tech industry. Mm-hmm. But over the last 15 years, I've been specializing in online advertising, specifically in the search, the Google Bing search area, Facebook advertising, those types of things. So that has taken me back and forth between California and Spain, Ireland and England. So I've traveled a lot for my career, spent a lot of time on the road. And in between, I've actually even started a business about 15 years ago, right as we went into the 2008 financial crisis. I was
good timing.
I was importing golf stuff into Spain, and so I knew right away when the economies were going bad, because people don't spend money on golf when
you're not importing as much at that point. Is what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right.
So I've to the point I've had this this inner desire and need to have my own business, to start my own businesses. But, you alluded to when we first met, I've probably been talking to you, Vince, about having a tap room for at least a decade.
Easily.
This particular one this idea has been on the table with a very old friend of mine. We met when we were like 13. We've been talking about it for, 3 or 4 years now. We finally we finally found the location and we finally found the timing. And so I left my previous job in December, and we started working in earnest in February to get this thing open. And
Well, it sounds pretty easy, right? You just get a building, you put a few taps up, and you're open. There you go.
Scott, I'm going to tell you what, that is exactly what I thought.
That's exactly what most people think.
I called up Eric. I said, I got a location. We finally have a location. And I'm like, we don't have to do much, right? It's going to be super easy. We'll be open in a month.
Yeah.
It's going to be fantastic. We can do it for, I don't know, not even that much money. Well,
It didn't work out that way?
No.
You're saying things changed a little bit?
Yeah. What does Mike Tyson say? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Well,
Bingo.
Well, that's where we're at. We're getting punched in the face right now, but it's really extremely satisfying, I have to say, even if it's one of the most stressful and nerve-wracking last couple of months I think I've had in a while. So,
Yeah.
So there's lots of satisfying things in your future coming up, right?
That's right.
That first beer that you sold, the first time that you could pay rent with the money that gets generated from the business is another satisfying
I'm
thing.
looking forward to that.
There's 3 or 4 in between there, and then the day you sell it's another satisfying.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
a business is like a boat.
You got it.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
Happy day to start it, happy day to end it.
That's right.
I like that analogy. That's a
business
good
is
one.
like a boat.
You just pulled that one right out.
Brand new.
I like it.
Classic.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, tell us more about the trial and tribulation. So I think what I'm curious about, talk about it being a 10-year journey, right? Because I think a lot of people can relate to that, where they've had an idea and it's been brewing for a long time. So there's some level of planning that happens over that 10-year period, right? It's not just, you're not just thinking about it. You're probably taking notes. You're like, I want it to look like this.
Yep.
I want it to have this type of beer, this type of food, I want these type of people working in that environment. So talk about the 10-year journey, and then bring us back to December when, or whenever that was, when you and Eric got together and said, great, we're going to do this. And here's the plan.
Right. So going all the way back to when the idea, first came, the desire to do something like that. Over the last 10 years, I've done a lot of research at craft beer bars.
Good.
So, this is
I've
very
done plenty of
scientific.
research there too, without the ability to build a business out around it. So just saying.
So a lot of research.
Not all the research counts.
If you can remember it.
Active research.
Right. And so a lot of it was just talk and, sitting at the table over lunches, over dinners at a craft, at a microbrewery, really kind of getting the understanding. In there somewhere was, a lot of actual research, right? Okay, so that things like, all right, how do you brew beer?
Sure.
Like, which I've been home brewing for, 30 years or something like that. So we got back into that. We started actually going and speaking to a lot of the microbrewers. We started going and visiting a lot of the tap rooms. We just
Did you find those guys open and willing to share their thoughts with?
Yeah. So that's the great thing about that community,
right?
Is that it's very open and they're all extremely interested and willing to help you.
It's an artist's community, and they don't mind sharing more so than a business community.
That's right. Yeah. It really is. And so, probably 3-4 years ago, I think it was probably 2019, is when we really started to actually put, a plan together. So we did the basic things of, all right, so what is it going to be? And, basic outline of a business plan. We started doing some financial modeling, trying to understand, not if you're going to make money, but will you not make money? Because that's what a model can tell you. It's not going to tell you that it will work, but it will help you understand if it won't.
Or the runway until I get to make money.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the other piece.
So a lot of it was in the last couple of years, as we've talked it through, was more on the financial modeling side of it, to really understand what we need to do in order for the business to be successful. Because as passionate as we are about craft beer and about food, it's a business and you have to make money, right? Because the worst thing you can do is take your passion and then go start a business and fail. Because then not only
you just call that a hobby at that point.
Well,
Turn that into
exactly.
very expensive hobby when you have a building and employees and
that's right. And you end up getting a bad taste in your mouth. And the thing that I want to avoid is not having a love for craft beer.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I want to. That's the number one thing we're doing right now is making sure everything we do is about the business being successful within the concept that we have, and it really comes down to we want to show our personality, and we want to show our love for the beer, and the people who are just getting into that world. It's a bit of a nascent sector.
So I want to talk a little bit about the research. Obviously, there's a big craft brewing thing here, right, in Southern California.
Right.
But now you go to Spain and you have your ideas on what craft beer looks like.
Great
What
question.
about the customers there? Did you do much market research on the potential clientele?
So we have. And so a couple things. So when I first moved back to Spain about 7 years almost ago, I started using Google Maps. So there's actually a service in Google Maps. You can actually create your own maps. So you can do the searches and you can save them and you can actually create your own mapping. A whole map of just the thing. So I started to actually map out all of the craft brewing industry in Catalonia. That's Barcelona, that area.
Okay.
And 7 years ago, there was, 4 or 5 breweries. It was tiny. There was basically no bars that were selling it. There was 1 or 2 in Barcelona, but outside of that, it was nothing. So I started tracking it and started following it. And so, Scott, to your point about researching, the types of people, some of that is there's not a lot of data in Spain. So a lot of that goes back to you had to go. We go to Barcelona. Or we go to Barcelona, darn it, and we have to
go to another tap house and watch the customers.
We're gonna have to go check these places out.
Right.
Somebody's got to look. But
Hey, somebody's got to do it.
But the good thing
taste
is,
test was part of it.
That's right. That's critical.
Yeah.
But the good thing is there is a lot of data in countries like the UK and here in the US about that. And so what we try to do is basically we're looking at pricing. We're looking at, we would look at the people who are sitting around the place. Was it, not to use stereotype, but were they wearing beanies and had beards, right? That's the classic craft brew hophead guy, right?
Yeah.
It turns out no. It turns out, looks people like us. We found that actually one thing was really interesting was that there's a lot of women over there in Spain, probably more so than I think I see in microbreweries.
Interesting.
Craft rooms, it's a bit surprising. And then something more recently, which was really encouraging, is that we've also seen there's you would also think the age groups are going to be something 20 to 45 or something, but we've also found that it's really there is no age bracket, right?
Let's go back to this woman concept for a minute because that is interesting to me. So the tap rooms that you visited, how did they make it comfortable for women? What was it? Just the beer? Was there anything in the physicalness of the building that played into that attraction?
No, I really don't know. It doesn't seem like they were doing anything different than you would see. The thing about the craft room world is, or the craft beer world, is that they mostly look alike. So so whatever tap room or craft beer bar you've gone to, there's a lot of design elements.
I've only been to one.
A lot of design elements, and I don't see really any difference in Spain. Or for that matter in London. They all kind of look the same.
I'm wondering if that's an opportunity, right? Well, you have a market there that attracts women more so than here for whatever reason. Yeah. If we could make that more conducive to them, is that a differentiator for you potentially?
Yeah. Well, I think not necessarily from a design thing. I think from what we're offering on tap. So one of the things that is going on is that you'll notice there's a lot of beers like sours, a little bit more seltzers.
Even the sours are becoming a little more popular here now too. And your ciders and your seltzers. Jeff, it's interesting as I hear you talk about that. So I just want to bring this back so that the listeners can really grab on to what we're talking about here. And as you're talking about the journey leading up to opening, the one thing that I take away from what you're saying is that you really honed in around the target market, and just the expectation. Not only that, it's just the design features of what people expect. And while there may be an opportunity there, I agree with what Scott's saying. At the same time, it's easy to get caught in a trap of wanting to be too different when the reality is just an expectation of what people want when they're coming to a tap room and getting that experience, right? And so why change that model, especially when what's probably critical is that in the area that you're opening up, that may or may not exist, or there may be few of them. And so that's what you're capturing is the geography opportunity. So, I'm hearing you saying, great, the part of that research was just really understanding the target market, really understanding what type of experience that the customer is going to expect when coming to a place like that. And then, you can start to develop your plan or what the place is actually going to look like, the location from that.
So when you and Eric were talking, after did you research, had a beer or two, and did you talking about what did we learn, right? Did you have those kind of conversations? Went this place, here's what we learned from that.
Yeah.
Everything's the same, things a little different, right? Having those deep conversations is really where that research matters.
Yeah, it's a constant fluid conversation that we have.
Good.
I mean, it's even, sharing things on Pinterest, Instagram, following different places, and then talking about the things that we like, sharing food ideas, sharing design kind of thoughts. And really, I think the trick for us is that it's a very open and long relationship. So we can say whatever we need to say.
Good.
And we really don't judge each other on things. And I think what's the most important part is because we talk about it a lot, we end up getting in alignment on things. So the most important stuff, it's not like we sit down purposely and go, okay, do you agree with that? Or do you agree with this? It's just an ongoing conversation. And I'll say something like, for instance, hey, for the bar and the facade of the bar, take a look at those tiles over here. What do you, and I know he's going to like it. Right. And then he looks at me and he's like, yep, that's the one. And we know that because it's like, I don't know, it's like an old marriage sometimes, you know what the other person's going to like and don't like.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when we get, this is really important for our overall design of the bar itself, is that we know that we've got something great because we don't even talk about it. We both just say, yeah, that's it. It literally isn't like a long, deep conversation. Okay. It's him saying, hey, we're going to do this tap tower. And I'm like, of course we're going to do that tap tower. Right. Of course you know that that's the one I'm going to like. And it just seems to flow every single time that we make a decision where we both completely agree on something, even if it's to say no to something, we know that we've made that right decision.
Well, Scott, so this is an interesting conversation, right?
Really
because not only are we talking about this leap to entrepreneurship, we're talking about being in a foreign country, right? So you can do a lot, like you said, there's a lot of market research, there's a lot of data around what's going on here, not as much out there, right? And so you've had to find that on your own, and you've got a partner. So you're going into this with a partner, and we've talked about this before as well in previous podcast episodes, where being in alignment with your partner is so critical to the success of a business.
At the end, being in alignment is so. Like I was thinking about our podcast here. Like we have a lot of the same philosophies, and we have a few differences from time to time. Yeah. Discussing those differences is more important.
It's more valuable
than just saying you like this one, right?
Totally.
And until we get to alignment, when we're done with a decision, we need to be in alignment.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But I don't think we need to start there all the time.
No,
having that relationship that you have with Eric allows you to get there without feelings getting hurt or those kind of things that happen.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. Yeah. Scott, you make a great point because I think we don't, like I said, we don't really talk about the things that we agree on. We talk about the things that we don't agree on.
Yeah.
And they're very open conversations, and they rarely turn into anything other than trying to find a happy medium, right? Where and very often we say because we don't agree on it, then therefore it's not going to be something that's in our business, right? We
Interesting.
It's because we have to. You can't. I don't think, especially in a partnership world, when you have a partner or multiple partners. I think that the most important thing in those relationships is that everybody's willing to be okay with not being in agreement.
That's right.
But understanding that those things that you're not in agreement with, you can't move forward with them. You have to put them to the side, because you'll eventually just create issues, and you fall out of alignment because with the things that you actually do agree on, because you start wedging in maybe negative feelings or
Well, it's carrying that resentment, right? So like you can't. That's you're right, and I think what I'm hearing you say is just the ability to move on from those things, set it aside, not let that wedge between when agreements need to happen, things like that. Don't carry resentment.
So
Scott
I'm going to suggest, even if it's a critical issue to the business, the ability to set it aside for now.
Exactly.
And then come back.
Yeah.
And then come back. Like the things that aren't critical, we can set aside. That's not going to be in our business. You stated that.
That's right.
Great. Well, we don't need that, right? But there are some things that we're not going to agree on that are critical for our business that we need to get in alignment. But it might not be right now because heightened tensions.
That's right.
Everyone's dug in. The things that aren't productive in a in a dialogue.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay,
that's right.
Good.
That's right.
Good.
Absolutely.
Well, so here's what's interesting to me, because I want to bring this next part of the discussion up, and I'm going to point out the obvious, which is you're getting into the restaurant industry, which has the highest failure rate, of course, and I don't care. That's anywhere in the world, by the way. That being said, I actually believe you can be successful. One is you clearly demonstrate the passion for it. This has been a passion project for a long time, and a long time coming. And there's a lot of planning, and you've got the right partner, right place. All the things are they feel like they're falling into place for you. And I think that you can leverage your previous experience, right? Your experience online, in the tech industry, specifically with online advertising, and marketing. I think so. As I start to think of how people are driving people to restaurants, I mean, that's how it's happening. It's happening in the social media world. It's happening online. So I'm sure you've already talked about the events that you're going to have and the way you're going to promote, and how you're going to target certain people, and even your ad spend, right? And that world so well. So, for me, I feel like, great, if anyone's going to succeed at this, it's going to be you, because I know you're going to know how. I know you're going to know how to leverage that.
I'm knocking on wood right there.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that as well, right?
Sure.
You could do all the social media things right. You can have the perfect location and have shitty beer.
That's right.
And ruin the business, or food, or whatever, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Poor service, whatever it is. So all those things need to take place as well.
Yep.
When some of them you may not have expertise in, like finding the right servers.
Right.
I hadn't heard that in your background yet, right?
Well, so Eric and I actually had a restaurant back in the late 90s, or mid late 90s in Spain. So we both have experience with that. I've worked in the industry prior to that as well. So I think between the two of us, our experience in the industry is, I think, probably good enough to understand a couple of things. So we talk about five
Checking
areas.
off more boxes, that's pretty good.
It's like 5 areas that we have to succeed at. And the first one is we've got to have, we have to have the right idea. And then we have to have the right atmosphere, right? So you have the right products, you have the right design, layout,
facility,
people comfortable, right? Then you have to have the right service. You have to have really good service. That's really important. And then you have to have solid management, meaning like how you actually go about the day-to-day, process-oriented. And I think where many restaurants fail is because they don't have business management skills. Like they don't understand all of the things you have to do on a day-to-day basis.
So you're saying leadership and management in a business is important?
It kind of matters.
Is that what you're telling me?
It's at least one of 5. I'm waiting to hear the 5th one because I'm still waiting for one that I'm waiting. Let's see what's 5.
So the 5th one for us is the marketing of it.
Okay.
Because it is not. It is a new sector, and it's going to be more of almost a destination place.
Okay.
And we're going to, and while there is a group of people who will seek us out, we're going to have to do a lot of marketing and advertising
find them.
to draw people in. So it's not just, it's your marketing stuff. So you've got your website, you have to have your social marketing, all of that sort of your SEO, those things.
Yeah.
And then event marketing. So we're already having, lots of concepts on we want to draw people from the local area and from without.
So let me add a sixth, unless you've already put that in your fourth, right? The management piece. And it could be there, or it could just be assumed because you've got that nailed.
Okay.
And that's the financial resources
Yes.
to start, weather the storm, weather the ups and downs, and then the financial acumen to be able to handle that. And the support system at home, if there is such a thing.
Right.
Because that roller coaster is difficult at home too.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah, it is. And so
I don't know if that's a six or if that's in your number four.
I would say it's in four.
In number four.
It's within all of those areas.
In the business management
Absolutely.
piece. Okay.
Absolutely. So,
So
it all costs so much more.
So it costs twice as much as you planned, and
More
you're
than
going
that,
to you're going to sell half as much as you think you're going.
Right.
Basic math.
So it's great though, because as I say, one of the things is you have to have the location. Your facility has to be. It has to be right, right? It has to be comfortable. It has to be, sort of authentic. All of these things. You've got to share your personality with everybody. And it's funny because we're going through it, and at the beginning we're like, we'll just, we can just make this ourselves. We can just do that. And eventually I'm like, dude, no. We actually have to spend the money. Like the bathrooms, I'll just give a perfect example. The bathroom, okay, a lot of people don't realize when you go to a place, and especially when you're paying a premium, right? Okay, craft beer is expensive.
Bathroom should be nice.
The bathroom's got to be nice. So the bathrooms weren't nice. And I was like,
Can hook you up with the towel guy if you need.
I tried.
Problem is he's all the way in Spain.
Yeah. But so just little things like that. And at every turn, you're going, okay, will this help the business or won't it? And then you start to realize that actually, every little thing matters.
Right.
And
then the creep. The financial creep.
The financial creep.
Absolutely.
I didn't see that one coming.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Who knew?
So it doesn't matter if it's a business or something as simple as building a home, there is going to be creep. For instance, I'll give an example. When I built a vacation house, and we have lots of kids, right? And family and relatives and all. And I started thinking about noise suppression in the house, especially around the master bedroom. So I put solid core doors there. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do it for my room, I got to do it for the boom, 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 and things just keep going. And in business, which glassware, which tap, which all those things that you're dealing with, right?
Everything.
We can have the one that we can afford, or the one that's really nice. Let's do that one. Our customers are going to appreciate it.
That's right.
And no one's going to break one.
No.
Well, so Scott, I should have led with this, and I apologize that I didn't. The other reason why I think Jeff is going to be successful is because I can't tell you with 100% certainty. There's two things that you can't get wrong getting a recommendation from Jeff, and that is food and beer.
That's
all right.
Vince. Thank you very much.
So I have a feeling that the food's going to be very good, and that the beer selection is going to be very good as well. So you can't. He's not going to go wrong there.
So of your 5 boxes, do you have lists of the things that need to take place within that? Discussions? How do you like your 5 areas, right? How do you go make sure that we don't fail in any of these?
Yeah, I mean so this is funny because spending so much time on the sort of the tech side of things, working at places like Yahoo and companies, and working with Google and Microsoft and these people, working with loads of really big agencies like the Yellow Pages here in the States, or newspaper companies who have thousands of small businesses. I've relearned again how many hats a local small business owner has to wear.
Almost all of them.
And so it is literally all of them. And so because of that, it's actually funny because on LinkedIn, I was so stoked about this whole project. I wrote, hey, I'm going to blog all this thing. I'm going to tell you guys everything what's going on with my marketing. And then I'm like, turns out I got 400 other things to do, and I haven't really done a whole lot on that stuff yet.
Can't get back to that yet.
Yeah, because none of that matters. But I mean, to your point, Scott, so having been trained and stuff in project management in the past, program project management, you started with that, with the project plan, and then started identifying, each section comes with, it's, by the way, it's an ever-growing list of things within each of those 5. It never stops.
I'm laughing because I'm going back to an earlier comment you made when you called Eric and said, "Hey, this is going to be easy."
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Well, it does become a span of control issue. And so again, bringing the conversation back to a point for our listeners is you do have to be really sensitive to span of control, because what you just said, that's what resonates to me is like, I haven't quite got to that yet. Because I've got all these other things that I'm responsible for. And so that can get out of control really quickly. And as you neglect things that are important to the business, right, is just, making sure you're categorizing what's urgent and important, what might be important but not urgent, right, and prioritizing accordingly. Yeah. So I think these things are important. So in the essence of time here, we're hitting that point in the podcast, and I know you got to get out of here today for a special event. So I just want to be very sensitive to that. And the way that we typically wrap up, you've listened to the podcast before, we like to give our listeners, some nuggets, right? And so, okay, if we've got somebody, if you've made it this far into the podcast, thank you very much for listening. What can you leave the listeners with in terms of your experience of, hey, if they're thinking of making that leap, what should they be doing?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that, again, I've relearned is that, one, you can't do it all yourself. So the most important thing is to understand not only what you're able to do, what you're good at, but what's more important for the business, and then find the right outsource partners, whether it be don't try to do your own books. Just go get an accountant, right? We're fortunate enough that, like, for instance, from a design standpoint, we had a very clear idea, but probably if you don't have a lot of experience, go get an interior designer. Don't try to do I don't know, like, we were going to tile the bathrooms, and then we looked at each other and said, "Are we fools? Like, sure, I've put some tile up before, right? But no, go get the right people to do the job for you." That's the most important thing. Trying to do it all on your own, you think you're going to save money, you will not. And you think,
but not just that. Vincent said something earlier about that, is the amount of time, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So if I make $1,000 an hour doing what I do, but I don't want to pay someone $100 an hour to be an expert at what that's right. That's a ridiculous math.
Bad math.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I think is understand your limitations first and foremost, and go hire the professionals to do it. Sure, I've got years of experience in marketing and advertising. I tell you right now, I am going to be hiring an agency to build the website and do a lot of the functions.
Because you think they can do it better, or because you have other things that are more important for you to do?
I have other things more important.
Good answer.
To do.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
Good answer.
Scott, what's your big takeaway from today?
I think it's very similar to what we said in our previous podcast, is that things cost twice as much as you anticipated. They take twice as long as you think they should.
That's right.
And that my financial projections, we're going to be talking about this in your upcoming coverings, talking about the financial projections as well, are probably, especially if you're on the sales side of it, they're probably aggressive.
Yeah.
So back those off and see if you can still make a living. I think the financial piece becomes very important, because we don't want this to be a hobby.
Yeah.
It is a business, and after all, we're in business so that we can make money, among other things, right? Passion and life and bringing joy to people and all that, all those wonderful things. But if you're not making money, you can't do that for very long.
That's right. Exactly. So we did our financial model, and a good friend of mine uses the term, okay, so do your model and then ask yourself a question. If you only hit 50%, is it still worth doing?
There you go.
And so in this case, it is. It's still worth doing. It's still worth in terms of profit and revenue, even if we only hit 50% of what we think.
Great.
And of course, we're already starting at what we think is a very conservative approach. So you kind of think what you can do, and you back that off by 20, 30%, and then what you got, and then you ask that question about 50%. So you're really kind of going from your, it's like, we're going to make $1 million. Well, okay, is it still interesting if you did, if you only did $500,000? Yep. Right.
Well, so Vince, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I love that. I mean, there's two things for me. One is I just want to make mention of the forecasting process, and forecasting is a dynamic process, by the way. And as you're starting something up, you need to keep changing that model, right? You need to update that model because you are spending more along the way. You've got new information. But I think a lot of people fall into the trap that they just keep spending, but they haven't adjusted their forecast. They haven't adjusted or updated it to see that, oh, we've got all these additional expenditures. Does it still pencil out, right? So that's a dynamic process, and you got to continue to change that. Secondarily, is I think just paying attention to span of control. I think span of control is one of those things that can get away from you without even knowing it, because exactly as you mentioned, because you think it's going to be cheaper and easier for you to tile the bathroom. It's going to be, you can do the website better, and it ends up taking up all of your time, right? And then so the opportunity cost, it's a word that we bring up a lot in our podcast, is you have to be aware of the opportunity cost of that. And I think that's a huge takeaway. So, man, this was awesome. One, I appreciate you taking the time to do that. I know you got a big day ahead with your dad. It's gonna be good. But thanks for sharing the experience and the moment. I'm excited for you.
Can't wait.
And
congratulations.
And I will have to come out to Spain to try some of the beer and the food once you're there. So.
Scott, you coming?
I can go drink beer.
All right.
I've done that before. Anyway, so Jeff, we appreciate you coming here. Thank you for sticking around with us with the CEO podcast. I'm Scott DeLong, Vince Moiso, with our special guest, Jeff Chu. Thanks for listening.
All right, cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.